Hello everybody. And let's see, it was I think it was last weekend, or maybe no, it was in the middle of the week before. I had a mini crash in my super red pleco tank. So I'm not well, what had happened, my theory, is I'd let moss grow all the way up over these sponge filters here. And I used to have on most of these I have a coarse sponge and a fine sponge. Let's see, I think, yeah, that top sponge there is a fine sponge. And the bottom, that's how I usually did it. But for whatever reason on this one, the bottom sponge ended up being the fine one. And this one's different. All these other tanks just have little like 200 gallon per hour power heads. This one has a 400 gallon per hour pump because there's so many plecos in here, and plecos appreciate the flow, and so that's why I set it up like that. What had happened when that moss, it just keeps growing on top of itself like this, and if you don't keep on top of it, the bottom would just be like it. Especially in my 75, where I got probably 100 plecos growing up and whatever, and then probably 2,000 or 3,000 shrimp all in there at the same time. You gotta maintain that moss every once in a while. You'll get like an inch of mud. Like this tank, I cleared it out real heavily, and it's still been cloudy. Every week it clears up a little bit more, but that one's just a shrimp tank, so all it has is, I only gotta clean that filter about once a year. But the tanks with the plecos, they gotta be cleaned out 3 or 4 times a year usually. Yeah, you can see that fine sponge sitting on top of a coarse sponge. That's how all the rest of these tanks are, besides the super red pleco tank. But back to the crash issue, is that bottom sponge, it had come completely, I mean, it was worthless. It was growing up, that moss, the moss was all slimy and gross, and bad things were happening in here because this got too gunked up down here, being right on top of the powerful pump. Now what threw me off was there's no noticeable reduced flow, because the coarse sponge had plenty of flow still. It was a little dirty, but it wasn't that bad. But the bottom one, and it caused a dead spot in here, and so I ended up just throwing that one away, that fine sponge. And with this being a pleco tank and that powerful of a pump, I just went with 2 coarse sponges. And so I still left a little bit of moss in there, but this tank is mainly for the valve and the plecos. Little super red guys. My problem is I seem almost all my plecos, I have an overwhelmingly majority of males, which is good, because they usually have brighter colors in this line. But if you're trying to breed them, where's my girls? Because everyone wants the big old males with the big old bristles and the bright red color. Here's one on the heater. So what I done is I cleared all that out. I didn't do a perfect job, but I vacuumed a little bit of it out. And then just let the current and everything take care of the rest, and it ended up getting sucked up into the filter. That's how I got this tank to run. Being dedicated to plecos. See where I added 2 new caves. But then there is a little bit of adjustment, and it was still behind the whole cycle process. And you ain't gonna believe this. This is something I rarely do. I pulled out my advanced testing capabilities. Yeah, I don't really need them and need a fancy test kit unless I think something's wrong. And it had me stumped a little bit there for a second. And I was like, it's got to be that. I got the feeling around there, and that moss was gross. And the only casualty I seen was right here. There's a bit the moss pile come all the way up to where that valve is. So it was all like the backs of these pleco caves were covered in the moss all around here. And I saw a little dead baby right there, and that's when I knew. And the adults have been like darting up to the top of the water and splashing. That caught my attention too. So between that, I mean, the tank had always been crystal perfect clear. Never even noticed any reduced flow out of my DIY filter spray bar thing. So, man, I was like, I know something's wrong. I can't put my finger on it. So then, that's what these are good for. In my use. I mean, I've been doing a lot of stuff for a long time, so I got probably more experience than the average. Not claiming to be an expert, but yep, this is the, they all hide in there. Catching baby plecos out of here is a real challenge. Not the best mix of breeding plecos and jungle valve, growing jungle valve in the same tank, but it's pretty cool. If you look in there, there's patches of the spiral valve. My buddy Valley Fish sent me these valves, and tonight it's cool. Add some variety to it. Now you gotta, the jungle valve eventually takes over mostly, but there's a big long spiral valve. So, and I try to every once in a while go through and give it the lawnmower treatment, so that's why it's shorter than most valve, but it does pretty good in a non-plant substrate, just a blasting sand. But yeah, this tank had a mini crash, and luckily I've been working from home, not having to stay in a hotel during the work week. So I was able to catch it. It was in the middle of, not last week, but the week before. And I can say we're fully good. There was a little mini crash, and I did like 2 90% water changes. And then I was using prime, dosing prime every other day. So, well. And there's some shrimp in here. There's yellow shrimp in here somewhere. Not that many. There are some, and you know they made it. You know the plecos will make it. So it wasn't that bad. It's kind of like trying to start a new tank and you use an old filter. You know it's not fully ready to go, but you're probably going to be alright with most things. It's kind of like that. But here it is a week later, and we're golden. There's a shrimp. Yellow golden back. Kinda. They just quit breeding for me. There used to be hundreds of them in here. I sold them, and they just, I don't know. That's another story. Little super reds. There was this spawn, all these little guys. There's a spawn of 100 plus, and they all made it. So there's There's even more than you can see. I don't think there's any eggs right now. I probably need to get the flashlight out and check. But, yeah. Well, let's do that now. Alright, this is tricky to film, but I looked in there, didn't see any eggs. Don't believe I see any eggs in there. No one's home in there. And that's just a young one. Well, and that one. And there's a bigger one in here. I'm not seeing anything. But, yeah. There's another shrimp. I did see a little juvenile looking one, so I saw a little one the other day, so somehow their population's thriving, or not thriving, but somehow the population's just barely continuing on. But it'd be nice if these guys would start breeding again. Now there you have it. Talking about my mini crash in my 40-gallon breeder with my custom DIY sponge filter setup. I don't blame the filter, I blame myself for letting that moss get out of control. But now I know not to do that again. Alright everybody. Oh, I need to start saying it I guess at the beginning of my videos, but I remembered to say it here at the end. If you're interested in anything that I have going on in my fish room, I now have a website where I offer my goodies for sale. So if anyone is interested in that, go check out markshellyaquatics.com, and there'll be a link in the description. Thank you all again. Bye.